There are games that cost $300 million. There are games with graphics that look like movies, with 1,000-person studios working on them. And yet, when you open Steam today, in 2026, and look at the numbers, No Man's Sky is right there, surpassing peak player counts of 30,000 simultaneous players, almost 10 years after launch. This was not supposed to happen. By any market logic we know, this game should have died in 2017. I think about this and arrive at a somewhat counterintuitive conclusion. Maybe size and budget were never the right answer to what makes a game last. We live in an industry obsessed with scale, with ray tracing graphics, with cinematic trailers. But No Man's Sky proves, almost by accident, that there is another formula running underneath all of this, one that does not rely on being the most beautiful game at E3. And the most ironic part of all is that this formula was born from failure. The 2016 launch was a disaster of expectations, an empty game disguised as an infinite universe, and that became marked in gaming culture as a synonym for broken promises. Except that it was precisely this rock bottom that created the only thing that actually matters here. Hello Games had nothing left to lose, and that gave them the freedom to rebuild the game from scratch, update after update, without rushing and without charging a single cent for it. When I play No Man's Sky today, with over 500 hours accumulated, I don't feel like I'm playing the 2016 game. I feel like I'm playing a living organism that changes shape every 6 months. Improved AI, richer biomes, overhauled economy systems, deeper narrative, all of this stacked year after year, without a single paid DLC along the way. It's almost like watching a person grow up, except that person is a game. And here is the real paradox. This model of free updates forever looks like philanthropy, but it isn't. It's pure strategy. Every update creates noise, the noise brings in new players buy the game for the first time, and the money from those sales funds the next update. There is no subscription, no microtransactions, no DLC. A player who bought it in 2016 has the exact same game as the player buying it today, only better. This creates a loyalty that no marketing money can buy. If I compare it to other space exploration games that aimed for the same kind of infinite freedom, the difference becomes clear. Many of them delivered limited systems, promises that were never fulfilled. No Man's Sky, on the contrary, kept expanding its universe in an undeniable way, year after year, until it became a benchmark in a genre whose reputation it almost destroyed in creating. I think the answer to the central question doesn't lie in any technical metric. It's not about how many planets there are, nor about the mathematics of procedural generation. It's about trust rebuilt in public, brick by brick, over almost a decade. No Man's Sky never dies because it is, literally, living proof that a studio can mess up badly and still win back everyone's trust, one update at a time. Every week, a new AAA game comes out, with a blockbuster trailer, a massive budget, and everyone talking about it for about 2 weeks. Then the hype cycle ends, the next release arrives, and that game that was the talk of the town simply disappears from conversations. This is so common that we don't even notice it anymore. No Man's Sky is living proof that this cycle isn't a mandatory rule. It's just the easiest path the industry chose to follow. I think about this a lot when comparing recent releases to this game's track record. There are AAA titles coming out right now, in 2026, with impressive graphics and massive marketing that have already lost relevance in a few months. Meanwhile, No Man's Sky, a 2016 game, still surpasses peak player counts of 30,000 simultaneous players on Steam almost a decade after its original launch. That isn't nostalgia. That's active engagement, real people playing, today. And what catches my attention most is that this longevity doesn't come from artificial reinforcement. There are no forced seasonal events every week, no battle pass, none of that psychological trigger mechanism the industry uses to inflate player numbers artificially. What sustains this is real content, delivered consistently, update after update, over years. When I compare it to other games in the same space exploration genre, the difference becomes even more evident. Many claim to feature living and evolving universes at launch, but freeze in time after a year or two of support. No Man's Sky took the opposite path. Every update brought more varied biomes, deeper systems, noticeable visual evolution, things that newer games simply stopped receiving much earlier. I find it almost ironic to call No Man's Sky an old game today. Technically, it's almost 10 years old, but in practice, it has been remodeled so many times that much of what exists now doesn't even look like what was launched in 2016. It's a strange paradox. A game that grows younger with time, while recent releases are born already dated. This makes me think about what aging well really means in a game. It's not about graphics becoming outdated or not. It's about whether the studio continues to treat that world as a living thing, or if it abandons the project at the first sign of a drop in initial hype. Most choose to abandon. Hello Games chose to continue, and that alone puts No Man's Sky in a category almost of its own within the industry. In the end, that's what makes this comparison so uncomfortable for the industry as a whole. A 2016 game being more active, more updated, and more relevant than games launched 6 months ago shouldn't be normal, but that is exactly what is happening. And every time this repeats itself, it becomes clearer that the problem was never the age of the game. The problem is that few studios are willing to do what Hello Games did. Let's be honest. By any normal criterion of survival in the gaming market, No Man's Sky should have died in 2016. I say this without any exaggeration. The launch of this game went down in history as one of the most extreme cases of expectation versus reality the industry has ever seen. A gap so wide between what was said would be there and what was delivered that it became a meme, a joke, a synonym for disappointment. And it wasn't just the community complaining for the sake of complaining. Reviews at the time documented this quite accurately. A supposedly infinite universe that, in practice, felt absurdly repetitive. Planets that looked like copies of each other. A game that aimed to offer uncountable elements and delivered something far too finite. When a game receives that kind of criticism right out of the gate, the historical benchmark says it becomes a footnote. It becomes that game that made big claims and fell short. End of story. I remember the general feeling back then. Hardly anyone bet that Hello Games would survive that, much less that they would continue working on the game. The market logic was simple and cruel. Small studio, destroyed expectations, player base evaporating in weeks. That's the classic recipe for a game that drops off the radar and is never remembered again, except as a warning to others. Except the exact opposite happened. Instead of closing their doors or abandoning the project, Hello Games made a decision that, looking back, was almost pure stubbornness. Keep updating the game. For free, update after update, with no set deadline to stop. There was no rush to save face in 3 months. It was a slow, quiet process, and for many people, to the point of appearing almost irrelevant while it was happening. And that's what fascinates me when I think about that period. While the rest of the industry followed the script of, if the launch failed, cut costs and abandon, this game went in the opposite direction. Improved AI, richer biomes, overhauled economy systems, deeper narrative, all of this stacked year after year, without a single paid DLC along the way. It's almost like watching a person grow up, except that person is a game. And here is the real paradox. This model of free updates forever looks like philanthropy, but it isn't. It's pure strategy. Every update creates noise, the noise brings in new players buy the game for the first time, and the money from those sales funds the next update. There is no subscription, no microtransactions, no DLC. A player who bought it in 2016 has the exact same game as the player buying it today, only better. This creates a loyalty that no marketing money can buy. If I compare it to other space exploration games that aimed for the same kind of infinite freedom, the difference becomes clear. Many of them delivered limited systems, promises that were never fulfilled. No Man's Sky, on the contrary, kept expanding its universe in an undeniable way, year after year, until it became a benchmark in a genre whose reputation it almost destroyed in creating. I think the answer to the central question doesn't lie in any technical metric. It's not about how many planets there are, nor about the mathematics of procedural generation. It's about trust rebuilt in public, brick by brick, over almost a decade. No Man's Sky never dies because it is, literally, living proof that a studio can mess up badly and still win back everyone's trust, one update at a time. If you stop to think about the normal life cycle of a game, there is a very predictable pattern. Launch, a few fixes in the first few months, maybe 1 or 2 DLCs, and after 2 or 3 years, the studio is already looking at the next project. This is the rule, not the exception. No Man's Sky simply decided to ignore this entire pattern, and we are already talking about almost 10 years of continuous updates, with no sign of slowing down. I often say that this game stopped being a product a long time ago and became something else, a project in permanent construction. And that's not a figure of speech. Every major update brought changes that, in any other game, would be sold as paid expansions. Overhauled AI systems, completely new biomes, remade economy, narrative layers that simply didn't exist before. Except here, all of this arrives for free, without a buy now notice. What impresses me most when I compare it to other space exploration titles is the consistency of this. Many titles in the genre offer infinite freedom on paper and deliver systems that remain frozen in time, locked in the launch version. No Man's Sky does the opposite. It changes shape in a way that sometimes I come back after months and feel like I'm relearning mechanics I had already mastered. And then comes the part I think is the smartest of all. Every update acts as a new reason to come back, even for those who have already played hundreds of hours. It's not recycling old content under a different name. It's real expansion. More varied planets, noticeable visual evolution, a gameplay loop that gains layers instead of repeating itself. This creates a type of curiosity that few games can sustain after the first year. I myself have gone through the experience of coming back after taking a break, thinking I had already seen everything the game had to offer, and being surprised by systems that simply didn't exist in my last session. It's almost a psychological effect. The game never gives you the feeling of being finished, because it literally never stopped being made. This completely changes how you relate to it in the long run. Some people see this as a problem, as if the game were eternally incomplete. I see it the opposite way. I see it as a long-term contract between studio and player, where the message is clear. We haven't abandoned this, and we won't. Few studios can maintain this kind of commitment for almost a decade without charging anything extra for it. It is this constant evolution that separates No Man's Sky from practically any other open-world game released in the last decade. Most games die when support stops. This one never reached that phase, because support never really stopped. And as long as it continues like this, there will always be a new reason for someone, whether a veteran or someone who has never played, to hit the install button again. One thing I noticed playing No Man's Sky for hundreds of hours is that it never told me, do this now. Most open-world games have a clear backbone, a main quest, a final goal, a line you follow even when you get distracted by the rest. No Man's Sky doesn't have that backbone in the same way. It gives you a universe and basically says, figure it out. And that seems small on paper, but in practice it changes everything. I can spend an entire session just exploring planets, with no commitment to progression, just to see what exists behind the next biome. In the next session, I might decide I want to build an entire base, or become a trader and spend hours calculating profit routes between systems. None of these choices is the right one. All are equally valid within the game. This reminds me of other space exploration games that claim to offer this kind of total freedom, but in practice deliver systems far too limited to sustain it. No Man's Sky is different because each of these activities, becoming a pirate hunter, collecting rare ships, cataloging unseen creatures, was built with enough depth to stand on its own as a game within a game. It's not window dressing, it's a real system. I think that's precisely why two different players can describe No Man's Sky in completely opposite ways, and both be right. One will say it's a space trading simulator, another will say it's a building game, a third will insist it's basically a contemplative walking simulator, and won't be exaggerating. The game doesn't correct any of the three. When I think about this from the perspective of someone who creates gaming content, this flexibility is rare to find. Most games push you toward a single type of experience and call that the game's identity. No Man's Sky built its identity around the absence of that obligation, and that is much harder to do well than it seems. There is an interesting side effect to this as well. Since each player defines their own goal, the feeling of finishing the game practically doesn't exist. There is no ending that exhausts the experience, because each person is pursuing a different goal, created by themselves. This helps explain why so many people return after months away without feeling like they are repeating something already seen. I think this unscripted freedom is one of the quietest, yet most powerful reasons for this game to stay alive. There is no right way to play No Man's Sky because the game never tried to impose one. And when you give that kind of real freedom to the player, every person ends up creating a personal and unique reason to keep coming back. We are so used to games that show all their cards in the first hour, with maps full of icons, entire skill trees visible from the start, and worlds that look more like dioramas than living places. No Man's Sky chooses the opposite path. It drops you in space with a half-broken ship, a strange planet, and a simple question that keeps echoing in your head. What's out there? That question is the fuel of the game. It's not the story, it's not the main quest, it's not even the epic loot you'll find. It's pure and simple curiosity. The feeling of engaging the hyperdrive, seeing that warp visual effect, and thinking, man, what is this next system going to be? It could be a planet covered in water with giant creatures swimming in the depths. It could be a barren world with radiation storms that won't even let you leave your ship for more than 5 minutes. It could be anything. And it's precisely this anything that hooks us, because the game doesn't state anything specific up front. It gives you the universe and says, go out there, discover it yourself. Most open-world games nowadays suffer from what I call revealed map syndrome. You open the menu and see 20 points of interest flashing in your face, telling you exactly where to go, what to do, and what you'll get. And look, there's nothing wrong with that, but it ends up killing that feeling of genuine discovery. No Man's Sky simply doesn't do that. It gives you a star system and nothing else. You don't know if that distant planet has a hidden cave with rare technology, or if it's just another boring rock ball. And guess what? Sometimes it's just a rock ball. But it's in this uncertainty that the magic lives. Because when you finally find something incredible, that feeling is yours. Nobody pointed you there. You simply found it. I remember times when I landed on a planet thinking it was just going to be another quick refueling stop, and ended up spending an hour exploring a network of bioluminescent caves that looked like they belonged to another dimension. Other times, I crossed 3 systems looking for a specific planet with perfect weather to build a base. And when I finally found it, it felt like I had discovered a place nobody had ever seen. Even knowing that everything is procedural, that someone somewhere has seen something similar, it doesn't matter. At that moment, right then, that was mine. Curiosity took me there, and the reward was the journey itself. And the craziest thing is that this curiosity doesn't grow old. You can have 200, 300, 500 hours, and there's still that itch asking about the next planet. This happens because the game isn't about reaching a final destination. There is no end where you've seen it all. The universe is literally impossible to explore entirely. The scale is so absurd that the idea of completing No Man's Sky is laughable. So you're never truly satisfied. There's always one more system, one more creature, one more landscape you haven't seen yet. And the human mind loves that. We are wired to want to fill gaps, and No Man's Sky is a giant cosmic gap that never closes. There is a subtle detail that I think Hello Games understood perfectly. Curiosity isn't just about the new, it's about the unexpected. The game doesn't need to amaze you every second, but it needs to keep the possibility of surprise alive. That's why to this day, after years of updates, I still boot up the game and think, alright, I'll just check out that system over there. 3 hours later, I'm in another galaxy, taking pictures of a creature that looks like a cross between a sunflower and a T-Rex, with no idea how I ended up there. It wasn't a quest that sent me, it was the question. What about the next planet? I think that's what keeps No Man's Sky alive, while so many other games in the genre end up forgotten in the Steam library. It doesn't fight for your attention with artificial rewards or endless grind. It relies on something much older and more powerful. The human urge to explore just because. Just because the next horizon is there. And as long as there is a next planet to land on, a next system to visit, a next star in the sky, this game will keep resonating. Not as a live service, not as a product, but as a question we never tire of asking. And to me, that is far too rare these days. There is a type of freedom we almost never find in games anymore. It's not that marketing freedom with a giant map and a checklist hidden behind every corner. It's real freedom. The feeling that the game trusts you enough to stay quiet. No Man's Sky does this in a way that still catches me off guard, even after so many hours. There is almost never a voice pushing you to the next objective. There is no icon flashing desperately on the screen saying, "Go there now." The universe is there, massive, silent most of the time, and the decision to move, or not, is entirely yours. This sounds simple, but it completely changes how you play. You choose where to go. It could be that purple planet on the horizon, a system that doesn't even have a proper name, or simply the opposite direction of everything the game suggested. And the craziest thing is that none of these choices feel wrong. Each one just redefines your story within that save. You choose when to explore. Some days I boot up the game wanting to map every cave, every ruin, every strange creature. Other days I just want to land, look at the sky, and let the soundtrack do the rest. The game doesn't punish me for that, it waits. You choose when to build. A base on top of a mountain, a messy orbital station, or nothing, just the ship and what fits in the inventory. Building in No Man's Sky never felt like an obligation to me. It feels like an extension of the mood at the moment. I remember times when I landed on a planet thinking it was just going to be another quick refueling stop, and ended up spending an hour exploring a network of bioluminescent caves that looked like they belonged to another dimension. Other times, I crossed 3 systems looking for a specific planet with perfect weather to build a base, and when I finally found it, it felt like I had discovered a place nobody had ever seen. Even knowing that everything is procedural, that someone somewhere has seen something similar, It doesn't matter. At that moment, right then, that was mine. Curiosity took me there, and the reward was the journey itself. And the craziest thing is that this curiosity doesn't grow old. You can have 200, 300, 500 hours, and there's still that itch asking about the next planet. This happens because the game isn't about reaching a final destination. There is no end where you've seen it all. The universe is literally impossible to explore entirely. The scale is so absurd that the idea of completing No Man's Sky is laughable. So you're never truly satisfied. There's always one more system, one more creature, one more landscape you haven't seen yet. And the human mind loves that. We are wired to want to fill gaps, and No Man's Sky is a giant cosmic gap that never closes. There is a subtle detail that I think Hello Games understood perfectly. Curiosity isn't just about the new, it's about the unexpected. The game doesn't need to amaze you every second, but it needs to keep the possibility of surprise alive. That's why to this day, after years of updates, I still boot up the game and think, alright, I'll just check out that system over there. You are there, in a universe with billions of planets, and the first feeling is being a grain of sand in the cosmic desert. But then you start to realize you are not alone. And I'm not talking about those NPC aliens who repeat the same lines. I'm talking about the community of real players, who transformed this space void into something that feels like a large virtual city spread across multiple galaxies. We live in an era where every game has an open map, but few manage to create that sense of true shared discovery. In No Man's Sky, you find a planet with purple ice rings, floating creatures, and a cave full of gold, and the first thing you want to do is share the coordinates. It's not because the game forces you to, it's because you look at it and think, man, I need someone else to see this. And people do see it. We form these informal networks of explorers, trading portals, tips, photos, and suddenly that discovery of yours becomes a pilgrimage site for dozens of other travelers. But it goes beyond just trading coordinates. Have you seen the cities players have built? I'm not talking about simple bases, but actual metropolises, with roads, commerce, residential areas, all organized by regular people who decided that specific planet was going to become the central district of a galaxy. It's crazy to think that building tools, which were originally meant for you to make a modest shelter, ended up becoming the Lego of entire civilizations. And the beautiful thing is that these cities have history, internal politics, and a floating population of visitors passing through every single day. Expeditions are another perfect example. Hello Games creates the event, but the community brings it to life. You go in knowing there will be objectives to hit, but you end up staying because of the people. The chat heats up, veterans write guides, newcomers get lost on purpose just to ask for rescue, and everyone laughs together when someone lands on the wrong planet and discovers a bizarre creature. These moments turn an experience that could be mechanical and lonely into something that feels like a space summer camp. You're not there just for the reward at the end. You're there because your friends, or even cool strangers, are there too. And there's a part I find especially touching: how veterans treat beginners. In so many online games, newcomers are eaten alive. In No Man's Sky, I think the nature of the game shaped the community to be different. You see a guy fresh out of the tutorial with a ship that looks like it's gonna fall apart any second. And instead of making fun of him, the community's first reaction is to help. We give resources, teach how to install technology, and sometimes even fund a decent ship for the newcomer. Not out of obligation, but because we remember what it felt like to be lost in space with nobody around, and we know the journey is infinitely better when someone extends a hand. The point is that the community stopped being an accessory and became an essential part of the experience. No Man's Sky without its players isn't just smaller, it's a different game. It's as if the procedural universe were the stage, but the ones actually writing the story, the ones giving meaning to those empty planets, are us. 3 hours later, I'm in another galaxy, taking pictures of a creature that looks like a cross between a sunflower and a T-Rex, with no idea how I ended up there. It wasn't a quest that sent me, it was the question. What about the next planet? I think that's what keeps No Man's Sky alive, while so many other games in the genre end up forgotten in the Steam library. It doesn't fight for your attention with artificial rewards or endless grind. It relies on something much older and more powerful: the human urge to explore just because the next horizon is there. And as long as there is a next planet to land on, a next system to visit, a next star in the sky, this game will keep resonating. Not as a live service, not as a product, but as a question we never tire of asking. And to me, that is far too rare these days. There's something I keep thinking about every time I come back to No Man's Sky. Was the problem in 2016 just the game? Or was it us who weren't ready for it yet? Because looking at it now, calmly, you can see that a lot of what it proposed back then felt strange, incomplete, even out of place. And maybe it really was too early. In 2016, the market wanted something else. It wanted a polished campaign, noisy multiplayer, clear objectives, rewards every 5 minutes. An almost empty universe, with crafting, survival, and slow exploration, sounded like a broken promise. I understand the frustration of that time. I felt part of it too. But time passed, and the audience changed along with it. Survival stopped being niche and became common language. Suddenly, everyone was managing hunger, thirst, temperature, inventory. What previously seemed like lack of content became, in other games, the very heart of the experience. Crafting also stopped being a background detail. It became a core system in huge releases. The feeling of gathering resources, upgrading gear, and making do with what the world gives you stopped being exotic. It became familiar. And when that happened, No Man's Sky stopped looking like an outsider. Exploration became genuinely interesting again. Not just running from icon to icon, but that quieter kind of exploration, arriving at a place without knowing what you'll find, accepting the emptiness, accepting the silence, accepting that sometimes the reward is just the landscape. The market swung back toward open worlds, discovery, and a sense of scale. And that's where the click happens. The game kept growing, yes, with massive updates, new systems, more life, more purpose. But the audience matured too. We learned to value the exact kind of freedom and pace that previously felt like a lack of game. That's why I think No Man's Sky didn't just survive. It found its moment. Not because time erased the launch mistakes, but because the gaming world walked to a place where this universe finally makes sense. The game changed. We changed. And in the middle of this meeting point, it stopped looking like a delayed failure and became one of those rare cases where patience on both sides paid off. After thinking about all of this, I arrive at a conclusion that seems too simple at first, but actually explains almost everything we've talked about so far. Most games are designed to keep you busy. There's a new quest every week. There's a progress bar. There's a scheduled reward to keep you clicking. It's a retention mechanism, and it works, but it has an expiration date. No Man's Sky never tried to do that. What this game does is different, and I only realized this after many hours of playing. It doesn't try to keep you busy. It tries to make you curious. That seems like a small difference, but in practice it's huge. Being busy gets tiring over time. Curiosity doesn't. You can get bored of repeating the same mission for the 10th time, but you rarely get bored of not knowing what exists on the next planet. And that is precisely where the secret lies, at least in my opinion. As long as there is a planet I've never visited, a ship I've never seen before, a creature nobody has cataloged yet, there will always be a reason to make one more jump. It's not about completing a task list, it's about the ever-present possibility that the next thing I find will be different from anything I've seen before. This creates a rare phenomenon, a game where there's always someone starting their first journey, from scratch, not knowing what to expect, and at the same time there's always someone like me, with hundreds of hours accumulated, coming back just to see what changed. Both are experiencing the same kind of feeling, just at different moments of the journey. That's not a coincidence, it's the game fulfilling exactly what it offered from the start. I think that is the real answer to the question in the title of this video. No Man's Sky never dies because it never reaches the point of being completely discovered. There is always the impression, even after almost 10 years, that the next jump could reveal something unexpected. And it's that promise, more than any specific update or new system, that brings people back. When we look at the gaming industry today, filled with games that try to keep you busy with increasingly complicated progression systems, it's curious to see a game that bets in the opposite direction and remains relevant almost a decade later. It's not about the quantity of content, it's about the quality of that feeling of, what if there's something different right over there? In the end, maybe that's the most important lesson. No Man's Sky leaves for anyone who loves exploration games. Curiosity outlasts obligation. As long as there is a universe to explore and a doubt about what lies on the next horizon, there will always be someone willing to hit the takeoff button once more. And that's why, in the end, this game never dies.